You are listening to the Doug Hagmann Radio Show, weekdays 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And now the man behind the mic, a private investigator with over 30 years under his belt, Doug Hagmann.
Good morning, everyone. It's 6 a.m. on the west coast of America, 9 a.m. here in the east. Welcome to Hagmann. It's the Doug Hagmann Investigative Hour for today, Wednesday. Almost slipped there. August 22nd, 2018. This is episode number 257, day 580 of the Donald J. Trump presidency. And, of course, we've got 463 of the 580 days where the Donald Trump presidency has been under attack by Robert Mueller. So many headlines to get into. And, of course, the sad situation with, Molly Tibbetts, her body being found, of course. The outcome of that. And one thing that I don't like to see is the body of a young woman or a young woman being used as a political football. And that's not what, mentioning the fact that she was killed by an illegal alien, you might say, well, that's, isn't that playing political football with the death of a young woman? And I really wrestled with this. I'm thinking, okay, would it matter if it was just a white middle American male that did the killing? Well, thinking back, 30 years of investigations, some in the criminal sector, a lot with murder, it does matter. It does matter. The simple answer is it matters. Because there are high-risk victims, for example, all right? My uncle was a high-risk victim for what it's worth. He engaged in behavior that was extremely detrimental to, and ultimately to, his health. So he was a high-risk victim. Drug dealers, for example, high-risk victims. Thieves, carjackers, high-risk victims. Potential victims, that is. But you've got Molly Tibbetts, who does not fit that profile. I don't know if you've watched CSI, for example, where they do the behavioral profiling. There's a victim profile done, and they assign a risk level to the victim. Prostitutes, for example, very high-risk profession. Increases your odds of being murdered, being in a gang. As I said, increases your odds of being murdered. And why do I bring this up? Because you've got this, again, this middle American white female, young, in the middle of Iowa, in the middle of our country, rural Iowa, whose body was found missing for what? She was last seen jogging in Brooklyn, Iowa, on July 18th of 2018. Not exactly the murder capital of the world. So when you look at all of the components, and this is, I guess, I just wanted to get this off my chest because I was thinking about this and I was wondering, okay, am I being fair? Are we being fair, for example, to even bring this up? Yes, in this case, absolutely yes. And sometimes, again, I just call upon my own experiences. And look, I was primarily a civil investigator. I consulted on some criminal cases. I've worked criminal cases as well, but the majority I consulted on. And the victim profile is as important as the offender profile. In this case, this is a young girl, that young woman that was just minding her own business. Not a high-risk target or high-risk individual. Someone who was not engaged in high-risk behavior, whose life was cut short, 20 years on this earth, in middle America, by someone in this country illegally. Now, discussing this is not going to bring back Molly Tibbetts, but perhaps just perhaps it could prevent another Molly Tibbetts or Kate Steinle or whatever. So the not just the victim assessment, but the offender, the accused, it begs rational, intellectual investigation. This is so this is what really is problematic with this. Yes, the fact that this man was an illegal alien in rural Iowa, killing a woman, a young woman, in the manner in which he did. We actually, I'm not sure we know with any degree of certainty how she was murdered. There's testing to be done. I'm not going to say anything until I see the reports, the medical examiner reports and such. But yesterday, the first-degree murder charge was filed against I'm not even sure, Christian Bahina Rivera, 24 years old, resides in the same areas as Molly Tibbetts. Now, what happened, just to expand on this, he was believed to have been in the area for 4 to 7 years, according to the sheriff's office. He's an undocumented, illegal. He's in this country illegally. I'm just going to leave it there. Now, Rivera led investigators to Tibbetts' body. He told officials that he had followed her and allegedly also ran alongside or behind her. Investigators were able to identify him after officials identified his vehicle in the same area that Tibbetts was last seen running. There was surveillance footage that they were able to get. And it's heartbreaking to see the posters on the telephone poles of the missing girl. I worked a case 5-6 years ago. A good friend of my sister-in-law. I guess I'm not going to give out any bad details, or any personal details. But I worked a case, and you might find this interesting. I was called about 8:30 in the morning one morning. I remember this like it was yesterday. I was sitting in my office, and I was called by my sister-in-law's dear friend. Her sister had gone missing and was missing for like 3 days. Now, her husband reported her missing after the requisite time. Anyway, to make a long story short, I asked to see the emails, her last emails and such, and her Facebook activity. So I was given the access to all of that. After about 2 hours, I contacted my sister-in-law's friend, and I said, "Look, you've got a real big problem here, and I have a bad feeling about this. I hope you know that." And the bottom line was, she was murdered, brutally murdered. And it was after a couple of hours of just looking at the. Now we're talking about a case that's about 500 miles from me. So I was not on the scene. It was by remote, but I was looking at the emails, and I just noticed a few things that I had talked to the police and such. But the bottom line was she was murdered by her husband, and very sad, domestic abuse. But just a few things that caught my attention. But the problem was we couldn't find the body. It was a situation like this one here with this illegal alien, where he ultimately led the police to the body, and that's what happened in the other case. And the reason I bring that out is, again, you've got comparative victim profiles. You've got two people that the victims, not high-risk targets, they're not engaged in high-risk behavior. And in the case of my case, a very limited suspect pool because of the very limited nature of what she was, the activities in which she was engaged. In the case of Molly Tibbetts, the same thing. So this comes at a greater, the Tibbetts murder would come as a greater shock. I don't know if you're understanding what I'm trying to convey here. Whereas you've got domestic violence, that's pretty obvious, or at some point, well, with Molly Tibbetts, you had none of that. Nice family, seemingly, from everything I've read, very low risk for violent crime. The difference is the guy the undocumented, or the illegal alien here. That's the difference. So yes, it does make, yes, it's okay to talk about this in that context. And this is going to be happening more and more and more. I didn't intend to spend really any time on this, but I wanted to get that off my chest because I really feel that this is going to be happening more and more. Not just with MS-13, but with the cultural differences. And there's another element here that I want to mention. Think about this. Have you noticed the sense of entitlement? The sense of well, I'm allowed to, I'm allowed to do certain things. I'm allowed to be here. Because you've got this group of people who are saying, hey, illegal aliens, there's no illegality about people. You can't be an illegal person. But think about that. Think about how the left, the communist left, how they are really idolizing or making into this idol type, this class of people. I'm an illegal alien. I can do this. Again, there's a sense of entitlement. Maybe I didn't articulate that too well, but I think that when you see the breaks given to illegal aliens in this country, I think you can understand that, well, they become more brazen. And of course, MS-13 aside, the lawlessness aside, just the typical illegal aliens, they're coming out of the shadows and saying, I can do this. No one is going to touch me. In fact, I've got sanctuary in California. They become more emboldened and brazen in their actions. I hope that makes sense to you. So just as you have a victim profile, you also have a perpetrator profile. And the perpetrator profile, in this case, the illegal alien, yeah, we're going to have more of these. It's just going to be, and if I can add another component into this, we're going to have more in terms of the Islamic component. As much as people don't want to discuss this, just from an investigative standpoint, you're going to have more Muslim on Muslim crime, for example, female genital mutilation. You're going to have more domestic abuse, husbands against wives. The culture they bring with them, and the lack of assimilation, the lack of desiring to assimilate. This is going to happen more in this country. And in that case, I don't think this is discussed enough. So our murder rates, yes, they will go up. And I remember, speaking of that, I remember in Buffalo, actually in a suburb of Buffalo, where the owner of Bridges Television decapitated his wife in the studio of Bridges TV. It's a Muslim TV station. And I had communicated with him months before that, and he was nasty. He was one nasty SOB, let me tell you. And in fact, he had an associate out of the country, just north of, not United States, Canada. And speaking with the FBI warned me off of this guy. He said, stop communicating with him. You're making him angry. And I said, well, I'm asking him questions. I need to know about certain things, or I want to know about certain things. And he said, this guy can go off, and you watch yourself. Well, why should I tiptoe around this individual? That was my, and it's still my feeling. Yeah, he exploded one day and actually severed the head of his wife in the studio, in Bridges TV studio, and then kicked her head across the room. Nice guy. He's in prison now. In a premeditated first-degree murder case, by the way. But there's that. All right. I'm going to change topics here for a little bit. I'm going to thank, by the way, we had open lines last night. The show that we had did not come together, but it's all right. I want to thank the callers from last night. Although one individual I know who called was attempting to get into something that, I know. If you're listening to this show, I know your deal. That's all I'm going to say. But we had some great calls, including Peter Barry-Chowka, who called and was really emotional about the state of our country and the state of censorship. And Peter, if you're listening, I love you, brother. And I'll tell you what, you've done more to advance the cause advance our cause than anyone I know in the journal as a journalist. You're a Class A journalist. And it's an emotional thing as we see our country just flowing down swirling down the porcelain drain. It's amazing to be alive yet, but it's disheartening. And of course, Kevin, thank you so much for calling last night. And Kevin, I thought of you this morning. I did. Good friend Kevin, thank you so much for calling last night and for your kind words. But I thought of you this morning. I'm thinking, man, it's getting that time of year where the fog starts coming in, and as a driver, truck, whether it's a truck, car, whatever, if you're driving long distances and you're going over various terrain, especially in the Northeast, you're getting into some. Just be careful up there, because I do remember getting into an accident, totaled our SUV. It was on the, 85, 87? What is that road that goes up, the interstate that goes up through Albany and from New York City to basically New York City and Montreal? Anyway, my son was driving, hydroplaned, and I got to tell you, we hit every stationary object there was on both sides of the road for about a half a mile as we spun. And that was on October 26th of 2011. And it was just one of the worst, or 2008, I guess it was. It was just one of the worst accidents that we've ever been in. And but so be careful driving, I guess, is the takeaway from that. But thank you for your kind words. And Walt, I was thinking about you as well. Thanks so much for your emails, and everyone who's emailed. Thank you so much. I digress here. I apologize. All right. I want to start out with I combed the media over the last couple of days. I've combed the media, and you've got a couple of issues, a couple of things happening all at once. Of course, you've got Manafort being found guilty, which really, Manafort was found guilty on 8 of 18 counts, mistrial on 10 counts, but these are all related to tax issues. I get that. Pay your taxes. These are related to banking issues from years ago. Has nothing to do with really the President of the United States. But then, of course, you've got Michael Cohen, who all of a sudden, out of the blue, decides to start rattling off interesting phrases, well, at least one phrase, at the direction of the president. It's almost as if Michael Cohen became this automaton where he is part of a plea deal that was under discussion. At one point, he was not expected to cooperate with the government, but by pleading guilty, Cohen, of course, would be free of the specter of a trial. All right, now, so Michael Cohen was scheduled to plead guilty in New York. This, according to the AP yesterday. And then you've got the delay in the Flynn sentencing. But let's go back to Michael Cohen for a second. I scanned the media, and I did find perhaps the best, I don't know, the best situational assessment. And I hope you don't mind me playing these audio segments, but because I think they're important. When you look at what's going on today, you've got yesterday alone, you had Manafort, you had Cohen, Manafort being found guilty, Cohen saying, I'm going to plead guilty to what? Well, hang on. And then, of course, you've got the General Flynn sentencing being rescheduled for, I think, time number 4, which indicates problems. You've got Mueller out there attempting to bury the president. There's a lot going on. I'm going to play this audio clip of Mark Levin on Sean Hannity. If you didn't catch it last night, it covers a lot of information. Now, Mark Levin is perhaps he's a great legal mind. Regardless of what you think of him, it's the information that he provides is key here. So I'm going to play this audio clip. It's about 7 minutes long, and I know people absolutely just, it breaks all of the rules of radio to play a clip this long, but I believe in you dig down deep. And then after this audio clip, I'm going to segue into what I think is perhaps one of the most important parts of things. They're important things. And this is where Kevin, this is where you come in. And this is why I was thinking about you as well. Remember the Rodney King riots of Los Angeles, in Los Angeles. Remember that truck driver being pulled out of his truck and being beaten into a coma. The reason I thought of that in the context of Kevin and just in the context of things, I do suspect that we're going to get to a point where if you're in a car or you're in a truck and you're driving down the road, you're going to drive through perhaps some hostile territory. Maybe not south central Los Angeles, but maybe unexpectedly in the Northeast. I don't want to scare anybody. But let's say you're wearing a MAGA hat, or you've got a Donald Trump bumper sticker on your bumper, and you stop at a red light, or you get stopped on the street by this roving gang of marauders or whatever. That's how I see things playing out. And I'm not talking about 10 years from now or 5 years from now. I'm talking about within probably months from now. And that has everything. I mean, what does that have to do with anything? Listen to Mark Levin, what this is all about. The objective here is to take away, or is to take down Donald Trump by any means necessary, to impeach Donald Trump. And short of that, I mean, to ultimately get rid of Donald Trump by any means necessary. That's the objective. If that does not happen, and I don't think it will, because I think Donald Trump is a powerhouse, and I think he's correct, he's right. If that doesn't happen, I can see the other side, the other aspect of this happening. I can see the, well, what would you call that? The South Central LA Rodney King riots, where just for wearing a MAGA hat and having a Trump sticker on your car, you will get beat up. Now, you might be saying, well, it's already happening, especially at Donald Trump rallies and such. Now, I'm talking about at different locations, at locations where you're just driving through. I'm talking about being ambushed in areas where you would never expect to be ambushed. Think back to what I was saying about the high risk victim versus the low risk victim. In this case, now you've got a situation where even if you are a low risk potential victim, you will become a victim because of your political ideology. And that, I believe, is what the Civil War is going to look like, at least at the beginning. We've already seen it to a large extent in the rallies. But when low-risk victims become targets of gangs, aside from the areas, aside from the rallies, for example, if you attend the Donald Trump rally, you're pretty much identified. But if you're out there in the world and minding your own business, you're a good person, and you got a MAGA cap on, or you've got a Donald Trump bumper sticker, you're going to become more of a target, even more than today. Now, that does, believe me, I would never, ever acquiesce to not wearing a MAGA cap or taking a bumper sticker off. I wouldn't do that. I would put more bumper stickers on. All I'm saying is the change will be not with the victim, but with the perpetrators, or victims, perpetrators, plural. I see that coming, and I see that as being a hinge moment in our country's I see violence coming. And I see a civil war coming in that kind of in that genre, or in that I see it developing that way. Does that make sense to you? It could start in New England, it could start in Iowa, it could start in Florida, it could start anywhere. But when you have really low-risk victims by way of profile, aside from being Donald Trump supporters, being victimized by perpetrators who hate Donald Trump, or more accurately, hate America, then we have full-blown civil war, or at least to the extent it would be in the modern age. And I think I can see this developing, and I think that this is how it's going to be rolled out. That's just my thought process here. Again, think Rodney King. Think the Rodney King riots. That's kind of the civil war I see. How it's going to play out, I don't know, but I see it starting in that fashion. Now, it's not going to end well. I believe it's not going to end well for these morons out there who, and these snowflakes, who are part of this resistance, this blue wave. Oh, I don't see it ending well at all for them. That is, of course, if we stand up together. All right, I just thought I'd throw that out there before this 7-minute audio clip with Mark Levin, who states a lot of important things. I could have played Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett, but I decided on Mark Levin because of the all-encompassing nature of what he was discussing. So, folks, take a listen to this. This is Mark Levin on Sean Hannity last night. Go ahead and roll clip one.
TV, we call him the great one for a reason, Mark Levin. All right, Mark, I mean, there are some lessons here. I agree that you shouldn't lie to the FBI. Everyone agrees with that. I also agree that you should pay your taxes. I also agree that you better not lie in a bank loan application. Mark, how did we get from Russia and that this is it after we're almost at 500 days?
All right, I want to address Michael Cohen. How did we get to that? I want to help the law professors, the constitutional experts, the criminal defense lawyers, the former prosecutors, and, of course, the professors. I want to help them understand what the law is. The general counsel for the Clinton mob family, Lanny Davis, he had his client plead to 2 counts of criminality that don't exist. These campaign finance violations that all over TV, they're saying implicates the President of the United States directly. First, let's back up. It is a guilty plea. It is a plea bargain between a prosecutor and a criminal who doesn't want to spend the rest of his life in prison. That is not precedent. That applies only to that specific case. Nobody cites plea bargains for precedent. That's number one. Number two, just because a prosecutor says that somebody violated a campaign law doesn't make it so. He's not the judge. He's not the jury. We didn't adjudicate anything. It never went to court. That's number two. A campaign expenditure under our federal campaign laws is an expenditure solely for campaign activity. A candidate who spends his own money or even corporate money for an event that occurred not as a result of the campaign, it is not a campaign expenditure. Let me give a few examples to help people understand this, especially the American people. Let's say, I wrote these down. Let's say a candidate had said, we owe vendors a whole lot of money. We've had disputes with them, but I want you to go ahead and pay them. I'm a candidate. I don't want all this negative publicity. So he says to his private lawyer, you pay them, I'll reimburse you, get it done. Is that illegal? It's perfectly legal. Yet according to the prosecution of the Southern District of New York, it's paid at the direction of the candidate to influence an election. Yes, Mr. Prosecutor, how stupid is your point? It's not a crime. More. Let's say this candidate settles a lawsuit that was initiated before he becomes a candidate, and he says to his personal lawyer, I want you to settle that lawsuit. You can use my corporate funds, my private funds, whatever it is. That is perfectly legal, too. The prosecutor would say, but that influenced the election. So what? There's certain things you do that influence an election that are legal, certain things you do that influence an election that are illegal. Let's say a candidate gets a non-disclosure agreement from a disgruntled employee, wants to quiet that disgruntled employee as he goes into the election. He pays the funds out of his pocket or through his corporation. Perfectly legal. Nothing here was spent out of the campaign. Nothing was done with the campaign or to the campaign. This is exactly what the federal law is. And Mr. Lanny Davis had his client plead guilty to 2 offenses that aren't offenses that the prosecutor insisted were offenses. That's why he's no good. That is Michael Cohen against Donald Trump. Donald Trump's in the clear. Let's say Donald Trump even directed Michael Cohen to make payments in non-disclosure agreements. So what? He's allowed to do that. Now, here's my question. Has the Southern District of New York ever paid money in a non-disclosure agreement with any of its employees? How about any U.S. Attorney's Office in the United States? How about the Department of Justice? How about any business? How about any union? How about the DNC? How about members of Congress? It's done all the time. But call it hush money. And all of us, hush money. Oh, they can't pay hush money. Well, it is hush money. It's legal. It's a contract. It's done all the time. Now, what does Mr. Mueller have left? It's work. He's chasing the Manhattan Madam. Who the hell's the Manhattan Madam? I don't know. He's interviewing. He's dragging her in front of the grand jury. What's next? The Manhattan Madam. He's got Manafort where he wants him on banking charges. He's set up a few guys like Flynn, who's gotten in trouble. Now they have Cohen. What do they have? They have nothing. I'll tell you what they have. Mr. Mueller, as a federal prosecutor, is preparing his impeachment report, which is an unconstitutional activity. Mr. Mueller is supposed to be non-political. He's not supposed to be preparing impeachment reports. Mr. Mueller, I told you before, you can't indict a sitting president. I told you that 15 months ago. Now you figured it out. You and Rosenstein figured it out. Now you and Rosenstein are trying to figure out what to do with the subpoena. You see, Sean, Giuliani was on your show the other day, or somebody's show. He said, why do they take 2 or 3 weeks? I'll tell you why they take 2 or 3 weeks. Because Mr. Mueller has to consult Mr. Rosenstein, his boss, to figure out what to do with this subpoena. I'll tell you what happens when they issue that subpoena. The President of the United States takes it all the way to the Supreme Court, and what does he cite? Department of Justice memos. What else does he cite? The Constitution of the United States. So this is going to be an impeachment battle in the end. The President of the United States, if he doesn't get involved in the perjury trap, think about that. They don't have a crime. He needs this interview to create a crime against the President of the United States, this prosecutor. Well, that's pretty damn outrageous. So in any event, I want the news media to understand, you know what took place in the Southern District of New York? Nothing that matters. Zippo.
Mark,
there was no violation of federal campaign laws. Lanny Davis blew it. Lanny Davis, he puts out a tweet today. Today, Cohen stood up and testified under oath that Donald Trump directed him to commit a crime. You're a dummy, Lanny, by making payments to 2 women for the principal purpose of influencing an election. If those payments were a crime for Michael Cohen, then why would they be a crime for Donald Trump? They weren't a crime for Michael Cohen. He screwed himself, and they're not a crime for Donald Trump either. Now move along and go back into your corner with Hillary Clinton.
But, well, obviously, he's a huge Clinton sycophant.
Okay, stop it right there. Cut it right there. Good. Thank you. Okay. Now, what Mark Levin said is absolutely critical, I believe. And if you need to listen to that again, listen to that again. Because here's what's happening. Well, the fallout. You're going to see the DNC, the Uniparty, the Never Trump unified Leviathan, use both the Cohen and the Manafort issues to push for the Democrats, of course, in the midterms, but specifically Cohen. And this is where, boy, this is where knowing the law and having knowledge of campaign law should, I mean, it's important to know this. President Trump did not break any laws, either as a candidate or as president. Michael Cohen was Donald Trump's attorney, an official representative, not just a casual acquaintance, not just somebody who is assisting him for the purpose of hiding things. Now, when you look at what's important, the takeaway from this, it's absolutely certain what Mueller is doing here. Mueller is using the Manafort case and most assuredly the Cohen case to create an impeachment, the impeachment papers. And once that impeachment, those papers are filed, his investigation is over, his mandate has been complete. And think about this. It's Rod Rosenstein who is behind Rod Rosenstein is Mueller's boss, one would say, given the fact of Sessions' recusal. Normally, it's the Attorney General that oversees the special counsel. But what's going on here? You'd have to be blind to see the end game objective here is to impeach Donald Trump, at least from Mueller's standpoint, and use people such as Manafort, but more precisely or more specifically Cohen, to do so, creating the illusion that Donald Trump broke some sort of campaign finance law. He didn't. And this is what Mark Levin was trying to say. Okay, go ahead and finish the rest of that Levin interview.
So this 2016 campaign, we're, 77 days out, is now becoming, as I have said for a long time, it's about impeachment, keeping Obamacare, them wanting their crumbs back, eliminating ICE, open borders, and stopping the investigation into what I say is the biggest abuse of power. Here's what I want to ask you. So we now have Hillary Rodham Clinton obstructing, violating the Espionage Act, no indictment. We now have her paying for what turns out to be a foreign entity, a foreign agent, putting together Russian lies that are disseminated to the American people to influence an election, lies never verified, never corroborated, then put as the bulk of information in 4 FISA warrants. Comey, Sally Yates, Rod Rosenstein, they all signed off, and they all said, they swore, they put their good name and credibility behind it. I don't see Comey indicted. I don't see any Hillary Clinton indictments. I don't see any crimes that are being pursued here. Barack Obama had, $2 million in campaign finance violations. He just paid a fine.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, go ahead. Interrupt on my own show.
The head of the FBI is not the head of the FBI anymore. He's a confessed leaker, and he's under investigation by the Inspector General. The deputy FBI director was fired and is under criminal investigation. Mr. Stroke, who was the head counterintelligence investigator, was fired, and he's under investigation, I believe, or will be, or should be, under investigation as well. That's the top tier of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I've never heard of anything like this before. You have a mole in the Deputy Attorney General's office who's working with Stroke, who's been fired. His wife works for the Fusion GPS, pushing out the opposition research against the President of the United States, getting it in front of the FISA court through the FBI. Bruce Orr, Bruce Orr, who served for the Deputy Attorney General of the United States. And there's tons more. You have FISA court judges that have never been held to account.
Fraud.
You had an application that was filed with the FISA court. They didn't say who paid for the opposition research that was used to violate their rules.
I got to run, Mark.
Yeah, we need a special counsel now for that.
You know, some great, smart constitutional lawyer once wrote a book, and in the book he said this is a post-constitutional America. Oh, that was you. We're there.
Okay, that's
Mark,
the
thank you.
Okay, thanks. That's the end of the interview, or at least the part that I really want to focus on. Now, I've got copies of the original plea by Michael Cohen. I'm looking at it right now. In fact, they were uploaded. I'm not sure who uploaded this. The Lawfare Institute, apparently. And when I look through these original documents, in fact, I'll put a link to the original documents if you want to read them. I got to tell you, it's pretty tedious to read. How many pages are there? 22 pages. Most of it's legalese. But they're talking about Title 18. It's 18 U.S.C. Section 982. Title 21 and Title 28 violations. What I mean by that, of course, is they are attempting to state that Donald Trump instructed his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, to use campaign or to use improperly use funds to settle, as Mark Levin said, to settle various embarrassing or other issues before, of course, before the campaign went really full on into the presidency, before Donald Trump went into the presidency. Of course, you'd want to do that. And as long as campaign funds are not used, it's no big deal. If you use personal funds, fine. If you use corporate funds from your business, that's fine too. There are no laws there. That's what Mark Levin was saying. So I'm reading this original, tedious 22-page complaint by against Michael Cohen, but it's what Levin had said. He obviously read the complaint or knows about the complaint. Look, they're attempting to impeach, and that verb impeach, they're attempting to impeach Donald Trump by creating a violation that does not exist. So important to understand, and the timing of this is so critical for everyone to understand. The timing critical because we have the midterms coming up, and they want to get as much mileage of this as possible. But what struck me as really interesting, the Lanny Davis being the attorney for Michael Cohen. You know about Lanny Davis, right? Now, Davis has been a lawyer. He's been a consultant, a lobbyist, author, television commentator. He's the co-founder and partner of Davis, Goldberg, and Galper. That's and a co-founder and partner of the public relations firm Trident. Now, think back to the 1990s. From 96 to 98, he served as special counsel to Bill Clinton and was a spokesperson for Clinton in the White House on matters concerning campaign finance investigations and other legal issues. I'm not, here's my thought on this. The reason Cohen picked Davis was that sentence right there, where he was the spokesperson for the president in the White House on matters concerning campaign finance investigations. I really believe when you look at this, Cohen was approached by Mueller and given an offer he couldn't refuse, kind of like the Godfather style offer. You either work with us or we're going to bury you, because you're really not, you've got some skeletons in your closet. So Cohen, of course, uses Davis, who's familiar with this campaign stuff, and is open to Mueller, because Cohen does not want to spend any time in prison. So he's going to sing like a canary, but more importantly, as others have said, not just sing, but compose. And there's a difference there. Singing and composing. You're actually making things up as opposed to just telling what you know. So just keep your eye on this. By the way, in 2005, George W. Bush appointed Davis to serve as the only Democratic member of the 5-member Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board, which was created by the U.S. Congress as part of the 2005 Intelligence Reform Act. I bring that up for a reason. I don't want to get into it today, but just keep that in the back of your mind. What we're witnessing here is the strong-arming of Michael Cohen, who I don't really, look, he might be a good lawyer, but I believe he will run to whatever deal possibly can be made. He will say whatever he is told to say, and he will be compliant in the hands of Mueller at the direction of Lanny Davis. And Lanny Davis, of course, being a Clinton hack, a Clinton sycophant. And this, by the way, goes back to Donald Trump's Democratic relationship back in New York City. You have to understand that. Remember, Donald Trump was hobnobbing with Democrats as well as Republicans. So picking up this Democratic lawyer, and I understand, by the way, I understand being represented by legal counsel. And I fully understand the political ideology as it relates to the decisions that are made by the legal team, by one's legal team, and I think that this is all part of it. So you're looking at, for example, okay, humor me on this. Let's say I've got a legal issue, and I don't know, it doesn't matter, whatever the legal issue might be. And my attorney happens to be friends with or of the same ideological mindset as the judge or the DA, or maybe the DA and the potential judge. And I suppose the DA might be more applicable. So would you pick, for example, an attorney based on his relationship maybe with the prosecutor? Yeah, perhaps. So, in fact, more than perhaps. So look at the background of both Cohen and Davis, and of course of Donald Trump. Donald Trump was, before becoming president, had dabbled in the Democratic field, of course, and has a lot of Democratic friends. So what I'm saying to you is this is being choreographed at the highest of levels. In this case, Mueller. Think back to what Mark Levin said about Cohen and Davis. There were no laws broken here. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew who Lanny Davis is and the significance of Davis's role in this. Because you've got the left having this orgasmic frenzy. Oh, look, this is the end of Donald Trump. Look, it was the greatest day ever. In fact, you had Kathy Griffin, of all people, putting up on Twitter via, I don't know, I was going to say via YouTube. I don't know if that's true or not, but putting up on Twitter, dancing topless, facing out away from the camera, of course, but dancing topless in front of an open window, shaking her, top. She's wearing pajama bottoms only and barefoot. At the news of Cohen cooperating via Lanny Davis, and of course Manafort being found guilty on 8 of the 18 charges. Okay, so again, you've got to look at and I'm sorry about using the word, this orgasmic response by the left. It's a very complex picture here with respect to all of the elements that have formed against Donald Trump. Really complex. There are a lot of moving parts to this. But and also remember, Lanny Davis served 3 terms on the DNC. It's another important point as well. This guy is one of the most political people on the face of the planet. And I should add, Davis started his legal career as an associate at Patton Boggs in 1975. He became a partner there in 78. Just think look at the background of Cohen's attorney, and look at the relationship, at least in ideology. This is the same ideology as Mueller. There's more here than meets the eye. I wanted just to get that in there. Okay. Now, Donald Trump has just a few things that he could possibly do at this point, I believe. Kind of taking this in one big chunk as opposed to kind of looking at this in different chunks. When I looked at all of the headlines and all of the news of yesterday, and then I was listening to and watching the various political pundits on both sides of the aisle, Fox and MSNBC, NBC, and even Fox Business and some other outlets. I'm seeing two different narratives being spun and being pushed out to the American public, and it's confusing. At the very least, it's confusing to the American public. However, here's what I think we're headed to. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think we are being pushed into a civil war situation. It will come to a point where it doesn't matter what Donald Trump does. They're looking now to replace Donald Trump with Mike Pence, and I believe that they'll go after Pence as well until such time as they can nullify the 2016 election. And they want to do this at the same time. They want to really amplify this in advance of the midterms. This is what's going on. So what does Donald Trump need to do? In my view, I think number one, he should immediately pardon Michael Flynn. Because remember, it's Michael Flynn. The sentencing it's being delayed again. There's something going on there. George Papadopoulos, I'd take a look at George Papadopoulos too. He's pardonable, perhaps. But more importantly, get rid of Rosenstein and Mueller together. Do it the same day. But most importantly is to declassify every single document related to this witch hunt known as the Mueller investigation. He's got to do that to show the basis, to show the lies, to show the political hit job against him. He's got to declassify everything and be very transparent with the American people. And then, of course, I think he's got to go further than just stripping John Brennan of his security classification, but take away all of the Obama holdovers, take away the security clearances of all of them as well. And you know what? Do it all at once. Because what we're going to see here, regardless, it's like ripping a Band-Aid off, the old adage, you rip it off quickly, get the pain over with real quick. That's kind of what I would suggest if I were in a position to advise President Trump, which I'm not. But the perception out there right now with the Democrat, with the left, with the progressives, with the communists, the perception is Donald Trump, his political career and his time as president, he's on a respirator. He's just holding on by a thread. And that's what the left media, that's what they want you to believe. And once everyone believes that, or the majority of people believe that, my goodness, what a criminal Donald Trump is, he will be unable, in my view, to do anything without the potential of being called on the carpet publicly. And even the political leftists in this community in America, across America, will take to the streets. This is what they want, and I think that barring any action from Jeff Sessions himself, who has been quiet to this point, who maybe needs to be fired because, as Sarah Carter had indicated in the previous interview, where is Jeff Sessions? And by the way, where is Huber? Now, you can talk all day long about the 40,000 plus indictments It's going to happen after, the indictments and such are going to happen after the midterms because Donald Trump doesn't want to make it seem political. I really hope, I pray that that's true, but I don't see it. I just don't see it. If it's true, then how great is that if it happens that way? But in my view, by not acting at this point, Donald Trump is playing a very precarious game, a very dangerous game here. And I see this playing out on the streets as opposed to, not just within the halls of, or within the swamp and the confines inside the Beltway. I see this playing out on the streets across America. And I see it coming in the form of the Rodney King riots, at least initially. And that's going to spark a larger civil war. That's what I'm seeing. In my belief, that's what we're looking at. And I believe that absent of any Donald Trump adverse action against Mueller, against Rosenstein, and even Sessions, absent of Donald Trump declassifying all the documents that led up to how we got here, that would show the criminality behind this, we are in grave danger. That's what I believe. Do I think, of course, that Mueller has a case? No. He's making a case for impeachment, but not based on law. It's based on the wishes of the globalists, the communists. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what's going on. That's what is taking place. And the censorship issue. For everyone wants to say, well, everyone's got an opinion about the censorship and banning. Some agree with me, and some agree with. Look, here's what's going on there. The communist globalists are heavily engaged in election tampering with the midterms. This is part of it. At least that's their short-term goal. They cannot afford a repeat of 2016. They can't afford the Republicans, in name only, or the conservatives. They can't afford the non-globalists to win positions in the 2016 midterms. They can't afford that. So they're doing everything possible to shut down the opposing viewpoints, and under the pretext of preventing fake news, calling us purveyors of fake news, when in fact we just discuss intellectually what's going on. They've got to shut down their opposition, and they're doing so using the mega platforms from Silicon Valley. And all of us are part of this. And of course, the social credit score that's being developed and being implemented here in the United States, like China, well, you know what? If you don't vote properly, or if you don't express your support for the globalists in the midterms, you're going to have a hard time. And we'll just pull your plug on social media, social networking, etc., etc. So this all fits together. Look and think bigger about this. But I do see this becoming very much more volatile, and as we lead up to 77 days until the midterms, I can see this becoming extremely much more volatile. Okay, in the program description box, I will place the documents, the Cohen documents. You can read that. 22 pages of legalese. But basically, that's my message for today. I would say buckle up. I'm going to say that I'm going to leave you with this. We are going to see much more, in my view, at least much more, many more instances of Mueller going for full impeachment, filing papers of impeachment, which he was tapped to do, and getting it done before the midterms, before the time that would permit him, or he's going to end it before a certain time before the midterms. That's what I see taking place. May God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this made sense for you. Hey, if it did, share it on social networking.
The Doug Hagmann Radio Show is brought to you by the Hagmann Report. Tune in to the Hagmann Report weekdays, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to HagmannReport.com. That's HagmannReport.com.